Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. Today we are going to discuss about a brief history of Bamiyan Buddha, and also we are going to discuss that in present context why and how the Taliban have changed their policy with regards to destruction of statue of Buddha. So let us try to understand this. So first of all, the context in which we are discussing this particular issue is because recently Taliban has announced that they will protect and preserve the ancient Buddha statues that is situated in the Mace Ainak region of Afghanistan. To remind you, Taliban came back in the power in last year August month after the United States forces and United Allied forces had to withdraw from the Afghanistan, thus leading to we can say emergence of Taliban all across the Afghanistan. So the reason why it is believed that they want to preserve and protect this ancient Buddha has nothing to do with religion, but it is basically this whole policy has been driven by the economic interest, because this Mace Ainak region, apart from hosting the Buddha statues, is also a very large site of copper mines, and these copper mines are there in which Chinese government have shown their interest. And that is why we can understand it is due to this reason that the present policies of Taliban is in marked contrast to the time when they used to rule Afghanistan earlier till year 2001, when they were driven out by US forces and the Northern Alliance. So shift in policy as discussed, it is mainly, as the Taliban's spokesperson has said, that it is because of the economic interest in this particular regions, and especially it becomes more relevant because Taliban government is not considered as a legitimate government by United States and European Union, and due to which the US and other allied countries have imposed a very harsher section on the Taliban, and that is why they cannot access the money, that is Afghanistan's money that is present in the other banks, for example in US and European Union. So Taliban are in very dire need of income. And it is in this context we have to understand that protecting them becomes more important. These statues become more important from Taliban because this is the area where Chinese are interested in. However, a final deal has not been reached between Taliban and Chinese government regarding the development, mining of copper and how they will sell and do all the things. However, the Chinese side have shown very keen interest in that mines. So that is the whole background of this current scenario. Now let us try to understand about the Bamiyan Buddhas. So Bamiyan, first of all, is a small province of a small province of Afghanistan, which is situated in the northern side, which is surrounded by the Hindu Kush mountain, while in the southern or eastern side it is surrounded by a river, that is Bamiyan river. From this Bamiyan river, actually the name of place was Bamiyan. And it is not only the modern city, but in ancient time also, since ancient time it has been a key node of the early Silk routes, and because it was lying as a very major junction of the key early Silk route, it became a very important hub of both commercial and cultural exchanges that used to happen between the east and the west. Now, interestingly, since Bamiyan lies on Silk route, let us try to understand briefly that what were the Silk route. So Silk route, before understanding Silk route, if we try to understand Bamiyan before that, so Bamiyan has been periodically came under the influence of Buddhism or under the influence of Islam. So a brief history tells us that since 2nd century to almost 770 AD, the Bamiyan was a very important religious sites of Buddhism. However, in 770 AD, we have the invasion of Afghanistan by Islamic ruler that was under the Abbasid Caliphate of Al-Mahdi. If you look at this particular diagram map here, you can see this whole green region shows the stretch of Abbasid Caliphate that goes all the way in the west up to Egypt and goes all the way in east up to the Afghanistan. Further again, between 770 to 870 AD, the Afghanistan was under the influence of this particular Islamic rule. Again, from 870 to 977 AD, again we have the increase in the influence of Buddhism in the Bamiyan. However, after 977 AD, we have another attack in this region of Afghanistan, where a Turkish dynasty called as Ghaznavid dynasty invaded Afghanistan and established their rule there. And since then, it has been largely a major hub of Islamic influence. The Ghaznavid Empire, though it originated from Turkey, however, we can look that it goes all the way in the east, then in the north, and then all the way up to east in India, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iran region. So definitely it was much smaller as compared to Abbasid Caliphate, but nonetheless Ghaznavid dynasty was one of the most popular and very powerful dynasty of its time. Now coming to the question of Silk Route. So Silk Route was a very ancient route that traverses all the way for a distance of almost 6,400 kilometers right from the eastern coast of China all the way up to the Constantinople, that was a very important city in the earlier or medieval Turkey. So overall Silk Route was functional in its glory between 2nd century BC to the mid 15th century AD, and the main dynasty which is believed to be responsible to create a Silk Route was the Han dynasty, when they wanted to expand their sphere of influence not only in China and the surrounding region, but even all the far up to the Central Asia. Further, the Silk Route actually became more important when more traders and more travelers from the western countries like Italy, Spain started to come to China to understand Chinese civilization, to look at the avenue for new growth in the economic sphere, new growth in the trading spheres, and that is when we have the large scale development of Silk Route network. If you try to understand, one Silk Route network goes all the way from Afghanistan and then Central Asia, Iran to Turkey, while one other branch of Silk Route, you can say, goes all the way from the China, then Tibet to India, where it traverses to the ancient city of Patliputra, that is modern day Patna, through Mathura, Delhi, and then it goes all the way up to Pakistan and then join the main Silk Route. That is why many cities in India were also very important hub of the Silk Route. The name Silk Route was derived from the concept that the most important trading commodity on this particular route was silk. And why silk? Because silk was exclusively being produced in the China for a very long period of time. Lot of travelers actually from Europe have came to understand how to produce silk. However, Chinese government at that time, Chinese emperor very vociferously have safeguarded the whole science, or we can say the whole knowledge about the growth of silk, and that is why it was exclusively the Chinese who had monopoly over the silk production, and they used to transport and export silk all across the Central Asia and Europe. So now coming back to our main topic, that is Bamiyan Buddha. So if we try to understand about the rise of Bamiyan as a city, as per the statement given by UNESCO, depending on the basis of the research which they had done, believe that the rise of Bamiyan was very closely connected with the spread of Buddhism across the whole Central Asian region, especially in the times when there are a lot of new political and economic developments were happening in that particular time. And the most important development that has happened in that time was expanse of a semi-nomadic tribe that were called as Kushans, when they came from a small city of Bactria and then expanded all the way in the east up to Afghanistan, modern day Pakistan, and even to India. This blue region on this particular map is something that you can see were the massive Kushan Empire. Since the strategic position which Kushan Empire held, they were located between various important civilizations, a junction of three important civilizations that were Chinese in the east, India in the south, and Roman civilization in the west. And due to these strategic locations, they were actually a kind of middlemen who prospered greatly from the revenues that used to be generated. They used to generate from the Silk Route, because as we discussed in last map, Silk Route used to pass through a large part of Central Asia, and since this part of Central Asia was under the control of Kushan Empire, they generated huge revenues, and on the basis of this revenues, since their economic situations become very much improved, they started to expand their empire. The main influence of expansion of Kushan Empire was that we have a development of syncretic culture in this particular region. Syncretic culture basically signifies that a culture that does not have a monolithic origin, does not have an origin in one central region, but actually it is a assimilation of different cultural values coming from different geographical regions of the world. So as far as this particular empire was concerned, it actually had a syncretic culture based on three major influences. The first was the ideological basis of this culture was the Buddhist Indian ideologies. In terms of traditions, it was largely influenced by the tribal traditions of the Central Asian region, and in terms of art and architecture, it was heavily influenced by the Hellenized Mediterranean architecture. Hellenized Mediterranean architecture refers to the architecture that was largely an outcome of influence of Greek and Roman architecture that developed in the Mediterranean in earlier times. So basically, Kushan Empire and the whole Central Asian region, including a part of Afghanistan that was governed by Kushan Empire, was assimilation of these three cultures: Buddhist Indian culture, Central Asian tribal culture, and the Greek and Roman Mediterranean culture. Now, if we look at Bamiyan Buddha, it is believed that somewhere in the 5th century AD, the Bamiyan Buddha statue were erected. This study was done after the Taliban had destroyed the Bamiyan Buddha statue on the basis of whatever remnants and remaining pieces were there that were studied by archaeologists, and on basis of that this conclusion was made. And it is also believed that once upon a time they were the tallest standing Buddha all across the world. And we have in this two major statues were there where we can clearly see the Roman draperies, that is, we can see this kind of draperies, that is a piece of cloth that Buddha used to wrap around his body, have a kind of Roman influence, and he is into different mudras. The architectural influence on the statue of Bamiyan is believed to be coming from three different realms. One influence is obviously of Gupta Empire, that was a very powerful empire, very large empire in the ancient India. Apart from that, we also see influence of ancient Sasanian culture. Sasanian culture basically refer to modern day Iran. So we can say basically modern day Iran or ancient Persia. The Sasanian culture basically says that we also have Persian influence that is visible in the Bamiyan statues. And apart from that, as we discussed before, we also have Hellenistic, that is the Greek influence. So basically we see influence of India, influence of Persia, modern day Iran, and influence of Hellenistic, that is the modern day Greek, in the statue of Bamiyan. Now, Bamiyan Buddha, as we discussed before, were basically two different large statues. The first statue that was located actually on the western side was locally called as statue of Salsal. Salsal roughly in English translates into the light that shines through the universe. So it has very important meaning for the local population of Afghanistan. It is believed to be constructed somewhere in the 618 AD, and it was highest, having the height of 55 meters. The second statue that was located on the eastern side was called as Shamama Buddha. Shamama again is a local word in the Dari language, that is translates roughly to the Queen Mother. This was constructed somewhere in the 570 AD, and it was slightly smaller at the height of around 38 meters. Then what happened? By the year 2001, when Taliban gained a very large part or large chunk of Afghanistan and took control of government, they believed, especially if we look at the words or the statement given by the Mullah Muhammad Umar, who was the founding member of Taliban, he said that the Buddha's idols are nothing but the god of infidels, and the standing such or leaving such statues behind is nothing but kind of, we can say, not as per the norms and rules of Islam. And that is why on this ground they wanted to destroy the Taliban, this statue of Buddha. Taliban, however, also believed that they were not just, it is also believed by expert actually, that they were not just interested in destroying the statue of Buddha, but rather they want to make a spectacle of destruction and want to send a message of their power in the world and their influence in Afghanistan. Now, in 2001, in the month of January, when the Taliban first announced that they want to destroy the Bamiyan Buddha statue, both nearby countries, neighboring countries, India and Pakistan, obviously opposed this move. At that time, it was the President Pervez Musharraf who condoned this kind of activity, who actually, we can say, asked the Taliban government to not take part in such activities and not destroy the Buddha. And India even offered to extract, or you can say uplift the statues, take the statues from Afghanistan and then take it back to India where it can be erected again. However, these proposals were rejected by the Taliban and they went on destroying the Bamiyan Buddha statue. It is believed that the whole destruction went for almost a period of 1 month, where initially the Taliban fighters wanted to destroy the statue by firing bullets, and later on they used even the explosives and grenade launchers on the statues. So after the destruction in 2003, UNESCO actually included some broken remains of the Bamiyan Buddha in the list of World Heritage Sites. Further, when the Taliban were driven out during the US war in Afghanistan, and when Hamid Karzai became the president of Afghanistan, he even proposed that a statue should be reconstructed and with the pieces that are still available in Afghanistan in other parts of the world. However, this was rejected and a counter proposal was given by some of the politicians and experts around the world that rather than creation of a statue, the empty niches, that means the in cove where the Buddha's statue was situated, that need to be preserved as a testament to the violent fanaticism that has destroyed them. Recently, this statue again made headline when, to mark the 20 years of the destruction, on the 9th March 2021, the statue of Salsa, that is a Western Buddha which was 55 meters in height, was recreated by a 3D projection beamed at the alcove where it used to stood. So this in the picture you can see is the 3D projection of the actual statue, Salsa statue, and this is the alcove where earlier Buddha was situated. So that is all about the Bamiyan Buddha statue and why it has recently came back in news. I hope you understood about this issue in detail. That is all for today. Thank you very much.